A couple of weeks ago, the game Void War disappeared from Steam after a DMCA takedown notice was filed against the game. This is the original announcement of that. Valve pulled Void War's Steam page after a DMCA notice that says Games Workshop is claiming copyright infringement. However, we have not received any other communication from Games Workshop, and the only claimant information Valve has provided is Games Workshop's public-facing infringement inbox and the name Mal Reynolds. Yes, like the main character from Firefly. We have not gotten any response from GW when we emailed that inbox, so right now we can't independently verify who submitted it beyond what is in the notice. I did not report upon this when it first happened a couple of weeks ago because, frankly, I was convinced this would be some sort of prank. A particularly vicious and asshole-ish one, but surely some sort of prank, right? Because Void War is basically the definition of distinct enough. It is clearly inspired by 40k, and the people who played it in many cases did so because of that inspiration, but it is not copyright infringing upon 40k's IP. Not in any way you're going to be proving in a court of law anyways, and the game had already been out for, 6 months or something at that point? Why would GW bother with this now? However, an update was released the other day, saying the following: Void War is now back on Steam. Here are new details on what happened. To recap, the initial takedown was triggered by a DMCA notice attributed to Games Workshop. At the time, we could not independently verify the submitter beyond the name and contact email Valve included. After over a week of no response, Games Workshop eventually replied to our email and confirmed the notice was theirs. They said their concern was limited to a specific shot from one of the trailers on the store page, arguing that certain elements could create the mistaken impression that Void War is associated with Games Workshop, specifically what they described as the oversized convex shoulder pad with a metallic rim. Yes. Games Workshop's copyright claim against Void War was for pauldrons. Holy shit. I'm old enough when Games Workshop tried to copyright pauldrons and failed to do so. In fact, that was one of the many things in which they were shot down for during the massive Chapter House lawsuit. And okay, just to finish the announcement first. All of the artwork in the trailer is original work created by our artists. While we disagree with that assessment, the simplest way to get the game back up and avoid getting bogged down DMCA processes was to remove that trailer and move on. We may re-upload an updated version later after we find time to adjust that shot. But for now, our priority is shipping content and finishing multi-language font support so we can finally deliver a proper translation. So, this is a common thing that has begun to pop up more and more as copyright infringement, quote unquote, is being weaponized by these companies. And it seems as if the only way to exist now is to be actively litigious in the face of anyone and everyone else, to the point where you must be the one making the threat rather than the one being threatened. And in the case of somebody like Void War, okay, could they have complained? Could they have gone like, this is obviously nonsense, you don't own pauldrons with metal rims, Games Workshop? It would have taken, well, first and foremost, it'd probably take another week to send an email back to Games Workshop. They would ignore it, send one out after 7 days, then they'd have to respond to that, send another email, and it would take a month easy before any sort of legal paperwork could even be filed. And then they'd have to take it up with Valve, or they'd have to try and sue Games Workshop, and then that court proceeding would take literally half a decade, as GW's chosen strategy and tactic combined in one word. Strategy in such a circumstance would simply be to delay, and hope that the opposition run out of money, whilst of course choosing to receive the lawsuit in some obnoxiously tiny courtroom somewhere in middle America, of course. And we've seen so many other examples of this too. Like this is just classic Games Workshop douchebaggery of discovering a game that's been out for 6 months and then finding one tiny little frame in a trailer that goes, oh, a shoulder pad. Frankly, that sounds like more of an excuse to fill a quota or just make trouble rather than anything else. But look upon other recent examples. We talked about Trench Crusade the other day and their Maximilian Class Knight, which is literally just a large piece of armor. That's it. The idea that they even think this is copyrightable is frankly laughable, as it's just armor. It's just Gothic-style plate armor. There's nothing that even identifies this as unique to the Trench Crusade universe beyond the dumbass diesel engine mounted on its back, I suppose. And even then, I'm pretty sure War Machine might have some complaints about that particular stylistic choice too. Or their Stotztruppen, which are just Prussians. And this entire issue is, of course, far older than Trench Crusade. It is merely the most recent example of a company becoming extraordinarily litigious to defend what isn't even original in the first place. Disney, oh good god, Disney's entire initial success stories basically builds directly upon other people's IPs, as they began in large part by taking over fairy tales, things told, written down and interpreted by other people. I mean, you would think that a company like this would have a certain understanding for other people's fair use, or 40k in general, to bring it back to GW, who based so much of their own setting directly off of Frank Herbert's Dune. The entire God Emperor shtick comes directly from it. They stole Chaos from Michael Moorcock in its entirety. Not to mention several uncomfortable coincidental similarities between elements of Dune and other factions as well, like Custodians and Space Marines, etc., etc. The list goes on. But all of these companies and corporations that built their success on the back of other people's work then immediately became litigious in some sort of, I don't know, insecurity over just how vague their position is, and Trench Crusade is simply seizing upon that habit before they even make it big. I could complain about that for quite some time, but in the case of Void War as well, you have here a product that, in many cases too, kind of straddles the line, right? Because in the case of copyright infringement, you usually have a series of tests, right? One of them is whether or not somebody could easily confuse an official product with this product. In this case, no, not at all. Could they confuse the visual style? Conceivably, one might make an argument that this is difficult to tell that is not a Space Marine at first glance, but seeing as it's attached to a game that Games Workshop has nothing even vaguely similar to, that argument falls flat pretty much immediately. Another standard is whether or not the alleged copyright infringing product somehow directly competes with the original IP owner's interests, and yet again, Games Workshop doesn't have anything like this. GW doesn't make games, they farm out the license, so that one too is gonna fall flat. It feels as if somebody at GW had a bug up their ass about this specific game, and due to that same kind of defensive, offensive feeling that all of these companies seem to have, and seem to have demonstrated again and again and again, they sent one of their agents out on a witch hunt to find something, anything they could strike to inconvenience the game. In this case, a shoulder pad. And maybe they hoped this would be an ultimatum that would either keep the developers from having their game up, or try to take them to court, one out of two, in which GW could simply sit on their ass for the next 5 years, hoping that their opposition company in Tundra would simply run out of either money or bother to fight back. Because, again, like, a pauldron in the trailer. literally a pauldron in the trailer. The oversized convex shoulder pads with the metallic rim. Holy fuck. I mean, GW, I have something else for you to sue immediately. If that is the standard that we're applying, please sue the fuck out of Trench Crusade. I wouldn't even mind. In this case, I would simply view it as two greedy bastards trying to rip each other to shred. If the Maximilian Knight isn't good enough, because I admit it is a remarkably bland design that even GW hasn't quite managed to match, what about the Stutztruppen? Gas masks, armored gas masks, Pickelhaubes? Surely this is a Krieg lawsuit waiting to happen, right? Right? For once, GW, do something that will make me proud of you. Just once. Just fucking once. But probably not, because the Trench Crusade developers have proven themselves to be every bit as litigious as Games Workshop has. I imagine one devil almost admires the other. I can just now envision Games Workshop's board of directors looking at the Trench Crusade community license and going, man, I wish we'd come up with something like that, claiming that we're giving people a license to make stuff in our setting whilst giving them absolutely zero privileges or abilities to do so. Ugh. That's conniving on a whole different level. Someone was probably fired from GW simply because they didn't come up with something equally evil in a short span of time. English. But yes. Copyright, it's just a weapon now. It's just a cudgel with which to beat your opposition over the head with. That's all it is. None of this have anything to do with reasonably defending your IP, as, of course, that is also a legal requirement, but GW has long since lost the right to that, with the sheer amount of knockoff goods that have been circulating on the internet for the last few decades. One could quite handily make the argument that GW has not done anywhere near enough to defend their copyright whatsoever. And when you again look at what they choose to try and enforce, convex shoulder pads, it is simply just a cudgel. That is it. And unfortunately, this cudgel will remain in effect for as long as our idiotic legal system remains. In Games Workshop's defense, they were hardly the first to start ripping the shit off other people. Disney built their entire company on the back of ripping off other people, and now finally Trench Crusade is following in their footsteps, waddling after GW going, look daddy, I can be an uninspired piece of shit too, but with even less personality this time around. At least GW could be accused of ripping off history first with Warhammer Fantasy, rather than going straight for Frank Herbert's Dune, or something. And I imagine also this was kind of them trying to make a little bit of example of it of a smaller developer, hoping again that they either wouldn't fight back, or fight back enough for GW to actually get retarded with it. As, again, tell me this does not sound like the biggest made-up excuse in the history of bullshit. I'm pretty sure the Germans had a better reason for invading Poland than this, and that was the Germans dressing up in Polish uniforms and shooting their own guards. On the bright side, I mean, good on the developer for getting their project back up again, and I entirely understand what they did here. Like, okay, we don't want this fight, it's going to be pointless. Even if we do win it, we're gonna get crushed under the weight of legal fees before it finishes. And by the time it's over in some, again, backwards American court, which doesn't allow indemnities for damages suffered due to incorrect legal prosecution, I goddamn guarantee you, we'll just be sitting there with the bill and nothing to show for it. So, what can you do? Literally, what can you do? Beyond upending the entire legal system at this point. And hey, I'm all for the idea as well, but I think that's a slightly bigger fight than we're going to be winning on Steam. At least not in the immediately foreseeable future. So, Fuck Games Workshop, fuck Trench Crusade, fuck Disney, and fuck the entire idea of weaponized copyright, which has simply just become part and parcel of living in the current year. Until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you very much for watching, and I do hope to see you all again soon. Till then, have a good day.